All right. We are going to talk about customer relationships today, and I'm going to share with you kind of how we've engaged in our company. But I got to thinking maybe I need to set kind of a framework here. We're an engineering business. A lot of people don't realize that we cannot bid our work. It's against the law. It's called the Brooks Act. And just think about this, when you're driving over that bridge, you don't want the low bidder to have designed it. You want the most qualified engineer to have designed it. So because in the early 1900s, they had quite a few people killed from unqualified engineers doing work, they passed the Brooks Act, which requires you to select your engineer based on qualifications, and then you negotiate a fee. Saying that is, the reason I'm saying that is that you must now understand how client relationships is such a key part of the success of our business. I doubt there's a business out there that you don't have to worry about client relationships, okay? And some maybe less than others. If you're in a bid market where they got to take me on the low bid, well, if your history says you don't provide good service and you're not a good contractor, you may not get that award. So I just wanted to set the framework to how critical it is for us and some of the things we're doing about it. A little about Freese and Nichols. We are a multi-service engineering firm headquartered in Fort Worth, located in Texas. We've been blessed to actually do some nice work up in Oklahoma, and we thank you for that. And we also have an office in North Carolina. We are 119 years old. Our founder came down from Minnesota and built the first water pump station for the city of Fort Worth, which the building still stands, but the pumps don't work. That's the way it works, 119 years. And hung his shingle out. So we're about 550 people. I think we always like being a mid-sized firm, but I don't think we're a mid-sized firm anymore. I think we graduated to large, which isn't as much fun. Let's talk about long-term client matters. For the engineering business, and I think it applies to most other businesses, you start out with a base load of work with the clients. Let's pretend you're starting your business, and that's your base profit. And then over time, you increase your efficiency from working with those clients. You know how they work. The first time you work for a client, you're not as efficient, you cost more money. And then over time, they give you additional work by rewarding you if you did a good job. And then probably the most important piece is you get referrals from those clients. So that's the value of those client relationships, giving them great service, letting them brag about you. They're going to tell others. I promise you, if you do a bad job, they'll tell more people than if you do a good job, okay? So remember that. We do have now a client-focused culture. We got into the Good to Great book, and in 2002 we gathered our leadership together at our retreat and said, what can we be best in the world about? Now, how many of y'all are familiar with the Good to Great book? That's great, because I ask my young people now, I used to ask if you read it, and half of them would raise their hands. Now I'm asking, have you ever even heard of the book? And but it's been out there for a long time. But one of the things he talked about is, what is your head start concept? What drives your economic business? What do you have a passion for? And what can you be the best at? And we got together and we had a long discussion, and we finally decided we need to be the best at client service. And that absolutely is our differentiator in our market, without question. We also simplified our mission and vision. It's not because engineers aren't smart and they need to memorize, they need fewer words. We just wanted to get it down where it meant something. So the vision is the one I just want to touch on for a sec. Be the firm of choice for clients and employees. That's a value-based vision. We set our goals every year. We're going to make so much revenue. We're going to make so much profit. We set it out in our strategic plan for 3 years. We do all those things, but our vision is to be the firm of choice. If we do these things right, all this other stuff takes care of itself, believe it or not. So this gets us focused on what's really important. So it gets to the core of what you need to do right in order to make all those profits and do those good things. Now, when we got into Baldridge, they asked us a question. I remember in their site visit, they said, what are your core competencies? And there was dead silence around the table, my leadership table. Because when you ask an engineer what is his core competency or her core competency, it's, my core competency is road design, and mine is water and wastewater plant design. That's not what they're asking about. So it took us a little while to figure out, but what they really want to know is, what do you need to do really well? It's got to be in your core competency to succeed with your clients, to have a client focus. So understanding the client needs, being the technical experts, exhibiting the ethical behavior, and being a trusted advisor are what we've identified as our core competencies. Anybody here ever been in the military? Oh, very good. Well, I was on division staff, and we had to do some serious planning. I was an engineer's branch, but the thing that challenged us the most in that planning was understanding the commander's intent. So every time we put a plan together, you are getting it, guys, here's what I want. It's the same thing with clients. You really got to get out there and understand what their needs are and what's happening with them. So let me talk about a few things that we did in that area. In understanding the client needs, we have basically kind of 4 areas that we, tools, if you will, or processes we use. We have a strategic planning process, and we do it, look at 3 to 5 years. And one thing I noticed when I first became president, after a couple of years of that, is that, guys, we're not looking out far enough. There's things gonna happen to us in the future that we gotta get our hands around now or be thinking about. So I created a futures committee, and it's all of our, is it left brain or the creative thinkers? So out of 550 people, I got my 2 left brain people, having engineers, but we put together a team, and their job, and they meet about 5 times a year, is to look at and what's happening out there 10 to 15 years that we need to get our hands around, or we need to track, or we need to do research on. And then we have our client rep visits, which is just the senior people visiting the clients, and then we have our client surveys. So let's touch on a few of those. What we did in our client panels is we said, gee, what are our client needs going to be out long term? So we brought in a municipal client panel, and we brought in a River Authority Water District client panel, which is our two biggest client bases, and just had a session with them and said, hey, what are you going to expect in the future? What do you think are going to be the needs that you're going to have to be a successful operation in what you're doing? We also did a panel on public-private partnerships. We had never been involved in the P3 process. We knew it was coming. We had to get our hands around that. But what we learned from that, we did these in 2011, is that our current core competencies will still be in much demand, but they also came back and said, you need to be a connector. And we're trying to get our hands around that a little bit still, but what they wanted is, it's kind of like the one-stop shop concept. But they want a firm to come in and take over a project, and that firm is going to get them connected to everybody that they need to be connected to. So we started having more involvement at the legislature area. We have always had and continue to have heavy involvement in all the permitting agencies that are going to be involved from the Corps to the state. And we're going to connect that client to every place they need to be to make that project successful. Be it legal, be it public relations, we can help with all those things. But they wanted a connector. They said somebody who can come in and bring this thing all together is what we're going to be looking for. The other piece is funding. And in Texas, and I assume in Oklahoma, that the cities have been going through some real budget challenges with this recession. And as a result, they want to do these projects, but if there's funding available out there, they need to get their hands on it. So we actually created a funding person in our Technical Excellence program whose sole job is to look for funding opportunities in all the areas of engineering and architecture and environmental science that we do. We also do market scans, and this is all part of the strategic planning process. And what we need to do is, this is like what is driving the markets. It's very simple. We use our technical excellence teams. Now our technical excellence teams, think of your company as a 3-legged stool. You have management, marketing, and technical excellence. This is the technical excellence leg. So we created technical excellence teams for every discipline in the company. And so their job, they get together every other month with a team across the company, and they talk about things that are happening, new technology, new changes in design. And their job is to track legislature, the type services and technology, and that's a feedback point into our strategic planning process. We also use our account directors, which really is kind of our sales force. And their job is they're out there among the clients, is come back and tell us, hey, what's changing out there in the market. So some of the things we learned is that there's going to be growth in current and emerging services. We've identified a few of those. Just to give you an example, after Katrina hit New Orleans and the levees failed, we knew that the government was going to come in and say, we got to look at all these levees. And so there's going to be a levee accreditation process. So we got and jumped on that pretty early. Demand for current and emerging technologies and any new technologies to watch for in the future. So we kind of do this every year to kind of keep our finger on the pulse. The executive client visits, we identify clients and have visits with the senior executives, conduct these, and we learn some interesting things from these. One of them is stewardship of resources is going to be very important. The smart growth, doing everything in a environmentally sound basis was going to be a big piece of what the public was looking for. So we said, okay, we need to get our hands more around that. Clients also wanted integrated services across the project life cycle. This goes back again to that kind of that one-stop shop. They wanted to come in, get that project planned, designed, constructed, and started up. And also deal with the public and everything else that's involved. And the CR visits, I want to touch a little bit on these visits to our key accounts. We use the Miller-Hyman process. It's just one of the programs out there you can buy to manage your marketing and sales. We got into this about maybe 15 years ago. One of the great things about this is you do a goal sheet for every client, and there's a lot of questions you have to answer in that. You know, you got to sit down with your team and answer these questions. You got to have a vision, goal. You identify future projects through this process. I think the most important one is the buy-sell hierarchy goal. And what they do is they ask you what level of service you're providing. And level one is you meet the standards. Now for engineering, that means a city may be looking to hire 6 engineers on a rotation process. So they select the 6 engineers, they spin the wheel, it's turn, firm one's turn, they do the job, they met the standards, fine, that's turn number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and they come back around. The 5th level is where you're actually helping your client's organization get better. One thing we recognized as a Baldridge company is that every client we had the same corporate functions that we did. HR, training, accounting, IT, etc. We did these things very well, and we started pushing to tell our clients, where can we help you in those areas? And now I sit down with the city manager. We don't talk about so much about engineering projects. We talk about, hey, I'm having a lot of trouble. I'm having culture issues. I'm having this, and we can say, here's what we can do to help you. We had our retreat this year, and some of our engineers said, gee, you know, we were doing these things we do, and I'll touch on these all, but client seminars and all these things we're doing our clients and our Freese-Nichols University, but now our competitors are starting to do that. What's the next thing we need to go to in client relations? Well, God bless the Baldridge, because the Baldridge came out and said, we want to get the cities engaged in the Baldridge process. And I'll touch on these, so we're using that to continue our relationship with our clients and help their organizations get better. But this process will document the visits, and we keep a good history of what's going on. Client satisfaction surveys. We send these out electronically. We get about a 50% return rate. All 5s is the goal, top box 5. I read every survey that comes back to the company. My leadership team reads every survey that comes back to the company. Gives me a chance to pat somebody on the back or jump in and help where there's a problem. But the things we've had a lot of good feedback in this process. A few of the changes is our project communications. They need one more consistent. The project manager handoff. We had a couple of jobs where a project manager left, and we brought in a new one and didn't do a good handoff process. And the job kind of stuttered for a while till it could get going again. And they wanted a greater emphasis on innovation. So let me touch on a few of those. In a minute. On the technical side of it, we have some great project management tools to help manage our projects. Our e-resource, where we can schedule projects, schedule company workload. It's been our greatest challenge, was trying to figure out how to schedule and determine how much workload we had in the company. So we use BST Accounting, and they had the module for the e-resource, and that's provided us, we're still working the kinks out, I gotta be honest, but it's helping us a whole lot getting managed and figuring out where our people need to be. For the project managers, we created on our intranet project dashboards or sites. So for every project, you're not going to do this for a small one, but for larger jobs, they can create a site on our intranet and then put all the financials, the processes, any news, status, any action items. And so where we have offices all over Texas, we may have people from 4 different offices working on the same project. This does a good job of helping manage that effort. The one-page reports, where I mentioned earlier, they were looking for more consistent communications. One of our Dallas office came up with the idea, let's do a one-page report. So every month they send a one-page report to the client, tells them what they worked on that week, what they're waiting on, any problems, etc. And we started doing that, and the clients were so impressed with it that they required all their consultants to do it. So we've got a kick out of that. We put this out initially and we called it a tool, because you want to use it, you can. Then in our client surveys coming in told us we were falling down a little bit on the communications. Our score was going down, so we came back and made it a rule. You've got to do these. In fact, you can exempt out, but you got to come ask the president if you can exempt out. And our communication score went back up in our client surveys. This has really been a great tool for our folks. On the Technical Excellence Program I mentioned earlier, they're going to monitor the legislation, the services. They also are involved in documenting the processes, design processes, and again, as I mentioned, they input our market scan. They come up with those regulatory drivers and et cetera. Innovation that the clients ask for. We have an I-Squared team, which is an innovation team. Innovation newsletter, awards, we recognize this. In fact, what we do with our TEPs is they have to submit up their most innovative jobs. So we get about 20 submittals, and we give an award at the company level, and then we take the best ones and start setting up at the state and the national level. So we're getting a lot of PR out of that deal. I see the bridge picture disappeared. That's kind of a neat bridge we did in Fort Worth. The traffic goes on top, the bridge under it connects the trail system, so people can go from across the river to other areas. So it's a dual purpose bridge. Okay, keep clients informed. One thing we've done a great deal of is client seminars, white papers, technical associations, a lot of service on association boards and committees. We got our people very engaged where our clients are engaged. For example, one of the things and I think it's not so, you got a lot of water in Oklahoma still, but we're in a terrible drought in Texas. And so we started putting on drought seminars to figure out what they need to do to start planning, what they need to be doing about that. So I can tell my people, you may complain about your water bill, but that's bread and butter, guys, so don't complain about it. Droughts are not bad. Ethics. We are particularly pleased to have been awarded the American Business Ethics Award on a national level back in 2008. I love this line. The first thing we ever built was reputation. In our business, it takes just a couple of darns and you got a problem. And so it's very critical. We do a lot of defining the expectations. We have a code of conduct. It's the first value in our guiding principles. But we do annual ethics training for our employees, and we invite our clients to that. Again, that's a great relationship deal. And it's very focused in the employee orientation and leadership training. And it's also a question on our employee survey. You know, it's hard to get your hands around ethics It's depending on who you talk to, they say, okay, it's at this level or it's this level, or are there 9 and 8 level, whatever. But it's really doing right. And you can talk to your employees all you want. The really effective role is that you act ethical around them and you show by example is the best way to do it. Some of the things we do in our ethics and our approach with our clients, we're going to go fix that problem. And then if there's a responsibility and it's ours, we're going to come to the table. I'll give you an example of a city called us. Their main sewer line was about to collapse. It had been all the concrete had been completely eaten up by the hydrogen sulfide. They thought it was our fault. We went over and met with them, looked at the film of the sewer line. It was gone. It was just a skeleton. It's the only line. It was the main line into their wastewater plant. If it collapsed, their sewage had nowhere to go. And we said, we're not sure this is our fault, but we need to fix it. And quite frankly, we spent about $250,000 of our money helping them get that fixed with engineering time, etc. The irritating part was we came back and it wasn't our problem. It was another engineer's problem, but we said, that's all right. This had to be fixed. So I paid for a $250,000 lesson. Next time I go, well, let's just take a look at it to see what we did here. But they did have a problem. If there's a conflict of interest, we're going to point it out. And we've had some clients will call us, say, we want you to work for us. We perceive there might be a conflict. We will call the other clients and see. And many times they'll say, no, go ahead and do it, it's fine. Something I'll say, no, I'm glad you called, don't do that. Even if there's a perception of questionable behavior, we're going to avoid it. And the last one I think is the most critical. We have absolutely zero tolerance for ethics violations. You only get one shot at that at our company. I know there's some people that do something because they didn't understand, that's fine. But if it's clear that you knew it was wrong and you did it, adios, we can't keep you around. Focus on the client, not the project. This is a quote from the city manager of Fort Worth, who said, unlike Freese Nichols, most consulting firms haven't figured out that they must be a partner and not a vendor. And that really describes client relationships. So we want to be at a level 5 with our clients, continuity of practice. One thing we do is we have a laddered relationship with our clients. So let's take the city of Fort Worth. We got relationships at the city manager level, at the department levels, at the project manager level, on down. And they know our people and we're connected like a ladder. And that is, we have found to be the best way to maintain a client relationship with a client. If you have just one person and that's it, it's not very efficient, number one. Number two, things will happen and you can't handle it. I've mentioned Baldridge being our new deal to get into level 5 service with our clients. We work with the city of Fort Worth. I don't know if any of you sat in on Tommy's presentation, City of Irving. That happened at a meeting lunch we had, and he was telling me some of the things they were doing with Lean Six Sigma and everything, and I said, guys, this is Baldridge. I told him all about Baldridge, and boy, he went after it. My CFO, Cindy Mulroney, went over and helped them, and we're just absolutely couldn't be more proud of the fact they won the Malcolm Baldridge Award. We've done a lot of presentations in our industry on the Baldridge, from the Society of Professional Engineers, Military Engineers, North Texas Commission, which is cities, et cetera, and the Texas Municipal League. So we feel we got to give back, having won the award, but even more important, because right now one of our biggest efforts is with the city of Fort Worth, not city, but the Fort Worth School District. And we're going to help our community, and it's a great relationship piece for our clients. So looking at long-term relationships, kind of putting it all together, you see the charts on how it can grow over time, and this is just kind of a summary of all the things we've kind of talked about. Client relations, retention. I will tell you right now that over 90% of our business is repeat business. Now, when you've been around 119 years, you pretty well have called on everybody, but in the state of Texas. But over 30% of our clients, we actually brought in as clients between 1894 and 59. City of Fort Worth, we've actually been working for since 1894. And you can see in the 60s and 79, I guess we went to sleep for a while. And then we started picking it back up in the 80s and the 90s. And in 2012, another 30% of our clients, this one we acquired a pipeline compressor station design firm, and we've really expanded our client base as a result. So this is our net bookings. This kind of tells the story. For those that are thinking of getting on the journey or just starting, one of the things you have to understand is you can't fix everything the first day. It's going to take time. You need to pick the critical items first and work through them. And these are, the red line is our bookings, and this is our new work, what we got under contract, and we've had a nice steady climb. Don't be concerned about that sawtooth effect between 03 and 07. What had happened was we had somebody win a job, get it under contract, get it signed in December, and then look, say, ooh, I've already hit my booking goals. I'll wait till January to put it in the books. So we had a little bit of that back and forth going. We cleaned that up. But over time, we started with client sat surveys. We went to our client-centered marketing focus. We developed our hedgehog concept, started doing client seminars. The integrated sales systems of Miller Heiman, we brought that on board. We put together a new sales structure. So we're constantly improving our system as we go along. But you can see that the results have been good. Also happy with our percent top box rankings. We're at about 60%. And our average client satisfaction ratings staying up there at about 4.8 out of 5. So we track all that data. When we have a dip, we jump in, figure out what's going on, do a root cause analysis, and then we take action. So that's it in a nutshell, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Yes, ma'am.
You said in your first year you do white papers. Do you target those white papers directly to your clients, or is that something that you sort of generically publish and use it as a
Good question.
PR?
Well, if there's a specific issue out there that we know a lot of clients will be concerned about, we'll put together a white paper on it to send that out. But we started doing newsletters. They turned into newsletters where in the water and wastewater field, we have a Aqua Alert newsletter now that goes out every quarter. So, you know, when we see something that we know is going to be an issue to our clients, we're going to get something out there on it to help them understand it, and also puts us in the position to say, hey, these guys know what they're doing. This is the hard thing about the last session. Well, I appreciate you being here, and I enjoyed visiting with you.